Hi everyone, I'm Daisy Victoria, costume and fashion designer, corset maker. Today I'm going to show you 5 different overbust corset silhouettes. You thought there was just overbust and underbust. JK, I know you didn't think that. I know you know there's more, and that's why you're here, to learn what some of them are. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell if you don't want to miss any cool costuming and fashion related videos that I put out. If you saw my last video, I showed you 3 different underbust silhouettes, which are kind of the main 3 that I use in my designs. And as far as overbusts, I tend to use quite a few more different silhouettes. So here are 5 that I happen to have on hand that I thought illustrate 5 kind of different shapes. Now, as a note, I did make all of these patterns myself. These are refined over many years of experience of sewing, adjusting, and I do adapt these patterns custom for every individual person's body type. So when I make a custom corset, I actually calculate the pattern for that person, for that specific corset. The ones I'm wearing were all made to fit my body, so that's why they fit me pretty well. I'm not going to lace any of these down as tight as they can possibly go for the video. I'm just going to put them on tight enough that I can show you how they fit. The first one is the one that I've been gravitating toward the most lately for myself, and that is kind of a longer line overbust corset. Now with this corset, and with others as well, you want the waist to be very tight. So the waist is going to be able to cinch your waist in, right? It's going to be the part that gives you a little bit of a more hourglass figure, shall we say. Now the bust, you want it to be tight but not too tight, and I have a little room in here because I haven't laced it down all the way. I can lace this tighter. Since I haven't, that's fine. If you want to put padding in the bust, then obviously you want it to be a little bit larger so you have a space to pad out. The hips, again, are tight, but they are not cinching my hips. So we want to cinch the waist in just a little. We don't want to cinch the hips. So we don't want to create any weird lines there. So hips are tight, not cinched. This particular corset has a front busk and laces in the back. Now a note for all of these corsets is that I'm wearing a tank dress underneath. The reason I picked this dress is because it's very simple and easy for me to put on all these corsets quickly to show you. However, what I do want to note is that you do want to wear something under your corset. It will extend the life of the corset so it's not absorbing all of your skin oils. Now if you have a tube top, that's so perfect, right? But if you don't, a hack that I use myself is to wear a tank top. Just take the straps off and tuck them inside the corset and you're good to go. Alright, let's get to the second corset. My next corset silhouette is being shown off in a lovely classic black satin corset with the addition of beaded lace trims. So fancy. This one is kind of similar to the first one, except that it is cut higher at the hips. So you get a little more of a point down in the front here. The neckline of this corset and the last one, and frankly the ones I'm going to show you next, is pretty high, right? So if you ever look at period corsets, and you can see some in my previous work as well, the necklines are sometimes lower and straighter across, and that is so that they won't show over the gowns, right? So these corsets are intended to have a modern usage, so we want the neckline to actually be the corset itself. And that is why modern corset necklines tend to be higher than historic corset necklines. Now this one, once again, is very tight at the waist, and the bust has a little more room, right? So it's tight, but it's not cinching. Like, we don't want to spill out over it. We want it to just kind of lift and accentuate, right? And with the hips too, it's not all the way tight on the hips. And in fact, this corset was made for a ball gown look that I did at one point. so it's actually extra loose here, and that's because I wanted to wear the corset over the ball gown skirt, and I didn't want it to like cut into the ball gown. I wanted it to continue the line of the flared skirt. So for that reason there's a little extra space, but when you don't put too much extra space, you can still get away with wearing it without the ball gown skirt, as long as, you know, you have like a skirt maybe or something that's not super tight so you don't see that it's so different. This corset also has a front busk and back lacing, just like the last one. Aha, a corset with cups. This corset is made with the bottom similar to the first corset, so it goes pretty long line over my hips. The main difference is that instead of having the regular corset up here, it has cups, and I know it's very embellished, so perhaps not the easiest way to actually see the cups themselves, but I think you can tell they are cups and they are there. With this one, the corset is fitted all the way up through the underbust, and in fact all the way up here it comes to the middle, and then the cups are inserted as separate pieces. This particular one laces in the back and does not have a front busk because that's the way I designed it for the outfit it went to. Bust cups give you a little bit of a different fit versus having the boning go all the way up over the bust. Oh, and as a note, actually, my boning is all steel, so I use a combination of spiral and flat steel bones, and these are all made for corsets that will last the test of time. I mean, I have corsets that are 10 years old that, actually, I have corsets that are 15 to 20 years old that I made that are still going strong, so these things last, especially if you take care of them. Also a note, I'm not showing putting on the corsets. I do have another video in which I show you how to lace yourself into a corset, and I will link that, so you're welcome to go watch that if you want to learn that too. I feel a different level of support in the cups versus the boned all the way up ones, as you might imagine. So the boned all the way up ones are more likely to easily squish everything kind of together, whereas the cups kind of give things a place where they're supposed to be more contained, I guess you could say, and you can kind of feel that when you wear it, though both styles are very flattering. Alright, let's go to corset number 4. Let me fix my hair, I done messed it up here. Look how fancy we're getting now. This is a very fantastical design, and this was actually from a Bridal Collection gown, and that's why it's white dupioni silk with all these cool lace appliques and flowers all over it. This one is based on the overbust general silhouette, again just like all of them, tight at the waist and not as cinching but still tight at the bottom. The top this time has these cool wing things, so the trick to this one is that it fits over the bust itself, but then it just kind of comes up off like a crazy bust wing. This one is cut rather high at the sides or the hips, so that way you get a nice long point down in the front, and when it's cut this high at the sides, you can still wear it over a ball gown and you don't really have to have it looser because the gown will poof from the sides, you know, so it won't really make a difference if it's tight here, right? Unless you wanted your gown to poof higher, of course, that's totally up to you. I really like this one because it's so fantastical. This particular corset does have a front busk, and then it has a lacing detail here at the front, like above the busk, so you get a little bit of separation of the wings while still having that little cool detail there. For our 5th and final corset, we're doing something a little different. The other 4 were all inspired by the Victorian corset silhouette. Now I know it's funny to a historical costume, or to say Victorian corset silhouette, because it did change decade by decade, but roughly it has the same aesthetic appeal throughout the Victorian period. And that is what most of our modern corsets are actually based on. They're just adapted so that they can be worn as outerwear now. This corset was actually based on stays, or more accurately a pair of bodies as it was known in the 16th century. This is basically my 16th century pair of bodies pattern, just made out of a cool modern fabric, and I have these straps here which are actually removable, and I did make them adjustable so they have multiple grommets where you can tie them in. And I did that because I was using this in some fashion shows, and different models have different lengths here, so I wanted to be able to put it on a few different people. This corset is conical. Notice the others were hourglass shaped. This one stops here at the waist, and it is not intended to draw your waist in so much like the Victorian or Victorian derived silhouette is. So this one is more going to squash you into a cone, right? It's still going to be very comfortable. However, sometimes in order to get that cone, you actually don't cinch your waist at all. You can cinch it a little bit. You just want to make sure it's a nice, you know, flat, conical silhouette. Now, this corset does have tabs on it, and that is cool because it kind of helps that boning go out over your hips a little bit. I personally prefer the tab styles versus the ones that just cut off at the waist if we're talking about the period, you know, 16th, 17th century kind of look. I feel like that gives a little more of a smoothness over something that I tend to have it dig into me if I don't. So I really like the tabs. So this one laces up in the front, and that is on purpose so that I can put it on myself. You can also lace these in the back, or you can do front and back. Most of the time, when I create modern or fantasy style corsets and costumes and gowns, the corsets tend to be derived from the Victorian silhouette. However, sometimes you get one that goes a little further back in time, and that's always fun too. So now you've seen 5 different overbust corset silhouettes, and of course there can be variations made on these. These are just 5 that I happen to have around, and I thought illustrated some cool differences. Which of these 5 corsets is your favorite? Let me know in the comments. If you didn't see my last video, I showed you 3 types of underbust corsets, so check that one out if you want to see even more corset styles. Make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my upcoming costuming and fashion videos. I also have a Patreon where you can support me in exchange for extra cool goodies and insights behind the scenes, how I make stuff, that kind of thing. And I also have all the social medias and a website where you can find a portfolio of my work and sample sales and, you know, cool stuff. I hope you guys have a super magical day, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye bye!